All right, y'all, welcome back and happy Tuesday. We have a huge week ahead of us like we talked about yesterday. Everything starts today. Two players are coming off of the board. Y'all can see them up top. Three-star in-state cornerback. I think he's really versatile. He can play outside corner. He can play a star. He can maybe even grow into a safety. That's a very common theme with this staff is that they love to bring up versatile players, period, but especially with our secondary. And then at 7 o'clock, we have Rouse coming off of the board. So where's Tennessee at with him? I feel very confident about Smith. Rouse, I'm not too sure. We'll talk about it as we go further into this video. But yeah, I mean, four-star linebacker, and he definitely has a whole lot of game. Then we have two more players that we know of at this point that will be coming off the board. I feel pretty good about both of those players, but, we'll talk some more about at least Joel. I think we might need to talk about him some. But we are going to be doing some things differently today. Let me first show y'all where Tennessee stacks up at with On3's class rankings. Okay, we'll scroll through. Y'all can see how some of the stuff is switched up. We'll talk about Tennessee's floor because we talk a lot about Tennessee's ceiling. We can also talk about Tennessee's ceiling too. But right now, Tennessee's sitting at number 15. So Texas is right behind us. And actually, we're fighting Texas for Rouse. You can see that both of these classes have 17 players. And it's kind of weird how this is ranked because Tennessee has 1 5-star, Texas has 2. Tennessee has 8 4-stars, Texas has 9. So we have more 3-stars than they have. But what this shows me is that the 3-star players that we have, their overall player ratings, is probably higher than some of Texas, some of their lower 3-star players. So I would say that at this point, Tennessee probably could drop down to about 18. I don't see us getting to 19 just based off of how the Tar Heels class looks. They've got 30 players here already. Will they add more? It's definitely possible, but you can see mostly 3-stars. I could maybe see SMU. They've got 20 players. They could add more. If they have a couple of big guys, they could bump up. And this is just pretty much worst case. If Tennessee doesn't add anybody else, I can maybe see us drop down. And, of course, we're going to add at least, a few more players. But, I think that 18 is probably Tennessee's absolute floor. As far as the ceiling, looking at this thing, man, it's kind of hard. I would say probably 12. Just based off of how these classes look, or maybe even 11. I could see Tennessee going over Clemson. I could definitely see that happening. So, we can still make it happen if everything goes perfectly. Could we get to that top 10? I think it would be kind of tough for that to happen because Miami's probably not done. They're only at 20 players. They're going to keep on adding. I think Clemson's going to start kind of fizzling out. They probably about hit their ceiling. But what we're going to be doing differently today is looking at the video game. Okay, so college football or EA Sports College Football 2026. And this is a game that a lot of people love, and we've talked about it. It's huge as Tennessee fans for us to play with Tennessee on this game. And I'm not going to be playing personally just because I'm not that good at it just yet. But what I want to do is I want to go to the matchup that I want to do is Tennessee versus Syracuse. We're going to actually do it in Neyland for those of y'all that want to see how Neyland looks on this game. And I wonder if we could change this to a night game. Okay, boom. So this is Syracuse. All right. And I don't think it really matters if it's home or whatever it is because, and this is going to be tough for me to do this just because, let me see if I can make this thing work. If I can make it a night game. But yeah, I think that the game is going to pretty much be a home game for Tennessee anyway. It's not going to be in Neyland, but we should have a lot more fans. You are not controlling a team. Yes, I do want to do that. So I'm just going to pull this up and let this play. And okay, yeah, so we can make this a night game, I believe. So we can see how that looks. We'll go at 8. All right. But I want to ask y'all a question, okay, about Tennessee, and I want for y'all to answer it for me and tell me what y'all think. So we'll go ahead and let this thing get to what it's doing. So I hope that y'all can hear this audio, but I'm gonna kind of be quiet for this part of it.
To hype this crowd into a frenzy, and it's working because they know what a huge matchup is in store. Welcome everyone to the shores of the Tennessee River, Neyland Stadium, home of the Volunteers. As we'll see a squad from the ACC, the Syracuse Orange, taking on the 22nd ranked team in the land, the Tennessee Volunteers.
All right.
For EA Sports College Football, Reese Davis with you alongside.
All right, so let me get that volume right. Okay, so I'm not sure if y'all could hear that or not. Hopefully y'all could hear, but that's how the running through the T looks in Neyland at night. So this is what I want to talk about, right? So talking about Tennessee's floor. for this season, we feel like maybe dropping down to 17, 18, okay? And I will be pausing this some and pulling up different graphics and things like that. But I think that, you know, with this whole Braden Rouse situation, all right, let me just try to walk y'all through how I saw it yesterday. So we do our videos, and then you know, once the videos get put out, I see that Braden Rouse is gonna be choosing his school today. So this was yesterday, right? You know, I saw that yesterday that he was going to be choosing his program today. So I go and look, what are our insiders saying about this? And at first they were like, man, we have no idea what he's going to do. Like, we don't know. Is he going to be picking Tennessee, or is he picking Texas, or is it somebody else? We haven't heard anything. Now, understand that those insiders, they're very close to Tennessee's program. And I think that sometimes they might know more than what they let on in certain situations. So I just found it was kind of weird to me. It was actually scary that you know, they didn't hear anything from Braden Rouse, from his family, from his agent, or any of that. So I was like, shoot, sounds like he's about to be picking Texas. But obviously, at first, once he comes out and he's saying that, hey, I'm going to be picking a program, you know, coming up tomorrow, which, again, going back to yesterday, I felt like, man, Tennessee's got to be in a great spot because we've led for Braden Rouse for like the past 2 years. So if he's choosing sooner rather than later, you feel like, yeah, Tennessee's in a tremendous spot. Because even those Texas insiders up to that point, they were starting to get more and more confident, but they still felt like, hey, Tennessee is probably who he's going to pick because they started on him way, you know, like 2-3 years ago, and we just kind of came into the fold here. But either way, once I heard our insiders saying that they didn't know what was going on, I felt terrible. But then I got some more information from those insiders, and they were saying, well, we got a chance to talk to Braden's father, and he's not telling anybody anything. He said he wasn't talking to media or nothing until after Braden chooses his program, which I kind of thought was weird. Like, if they're not talking to media, then why are they talking to y'all? You know what I mean? But either way, okay, I don't know. I mean, this could go either way. I feel like Tennessee should still be in a very positive spot. Some insight, you know, last time that I've like kind of heard from Braden Rouse was he was at a 7-on-7. This is after his OV to Tennessee. He was at a 7-on-7, and he was wearing a bunch of Tennessee stuff. So I was like, shoot, man, he absolutely loves us. But then obviously, you know, Texas was already kind of in the mix at that point, but feels like they started to maybe make a little bit more ground. I think that he's going to end up choosing Tennessee ultimately. But what if he doesn't? You know, like what if Braden Rouse goes on to pick Texas or somebody else? Because it feels like maybe the Texas insiders don't even know. And we have to watch those national insiders, the ones that drop the phone bombs and the crystal balls. We got to watch and see, does anything come out for Braden Rouse with either program or with any program? I think that's going to be very telling because it's going to be a long day waiting to see what happens with Braden Rouse. But I will say this, and we have said this, I love Braden Rouse's game. I think he's one of the best linebackers in this class. I think that his ceiling is super high because he's still new to playing at linebacker. So he's only going to get exponentially better, especially once he gets up to college. And you know, actually at that 7-on-7 thing, he was playing at safety. So it just goes to show how versatile of a player Braden actually is. But what if Tennessee doesn't land Braden? Are we in a terrible spot? Because, yes, he's very, very talented, but I don't think Tennessee necessarily needs him in this class. I honestly don't. It's we would love to have him. So, and when I say that we don't need him, I'm saying like we don't need him from the standpoint of, hey, man, like we need to add some more linebackers because we're really running low on depth. We've got a lot of very talented youth at linebacker on this team. So Braden Rouse is more of a luxury. Now, again, it's not to say that I don't really want him because of course I want him. But from the on the field, hey, we need somebody who can come in and play right now at backer. It's a dire need. We don't need him from that standpoint. But if you look at it a totally different way, if you look at the simple fact that in this class, Tennessee really, I mean, like how many real big boy battles that came down to the wire has Tennessee won? I can't think of any. You know, now obviously Faison Brandon, that was huge. You know, we've got some good players. I'm not saying that, but it was more of we got them off the board early. So that's, shouts out to the staff for being able to just get those guys to lock in with this team. But it's not, I'm saying like whenever it comes down to, man, this, player likes this school and likes that school and it's kind of head to head. Tennessee I haven't seen us win any of those battles here. And it's kind of been a problem since this staff came up. So my question is, and I'm not done. I'm going to, lay out more things for you. But my question for y'all is, Does Tennessee have a problem closing? Does Tennessee have a problem adding talent to our team? Have we hit a ceiling? And if we have, then what or if we do have a problem, if we have hit a ceiling, what is the problem and how do we overcome it? That's going to be my overall question. Actually, I'm gonna pause this if they'll let me pause it. Actually, I don't even know if they'll even let me pause it because I'm not playing. So it's not gonna. Okay, there it is. Boom. All right, so I'm gonna pause this for just a second and let me bring up something here and let me show y'all what Coach Heupel has done since he's been up at Tennessee. All right, because we've looked at this previously, and actually I'm gonna actually go out for just a second. So, all right, y'all are not gonna see me, but I'm definitely still here. All right, so look, this is what Heupel has done, and we've looked at this in a couple of different videos. But from 2021 to 2025, you can see that his classes got better and better and better. 2021, his first class, that was his worst class. 16 total players. They finished ranked 23rd. Now, our ceiling was right outside of the top 10 in 2025, right? 25 players in that class. And listen, this is a small sample size. Coach Heupel and everyone else, we have plenty of time to get this thing right. But it does feel like we're going to take a step back in 2026. I don't know that we're really going to get up to maybe top 12. I think that that's possible, but it's probably going to be more like top 15-ish. So I definitely wanted to show y'all this just so y'all could see what I'm talking about as we move forward. And let me also show y'all this here just very, very quickly. This is something that if you can, you can pause it here or just come back to it and you can see the caliber of players that Coach Heupel's brought up from the high school ranks to the transfer portal and at each spot, right? Like, where's he doing a really good job of bringing up talent at versus some of these other ones, like quarterback doing a great job, safety doing a horrible job. You can also see the players that he's had drafted that came up with his classes, not from previous classes, but just from his classes. Now, Tennessee has had some players that got to that made it to the NFL, but they weren't drafted. So, he had a total of 9 draft picks. All right, so I wanted to show y'all that, and then, we can move forward with everything else. So let me bring this back up, and let me come back. Let me get myself back right. All right, boom. All right, so now we'll let this thing keep on rolling on, and I will continue with my thoughts on what Coach Heupel has done since he's came up. So, again, great job of man, Tennessee was in such a terrible spot, such an awful spot. I think that Coach Heupel and his staff did a brilliant job of, making us relevant. You know what I'm saying? Getting us to a really, really good spot, obviously. Making it to the college football playoffs in last season, 2024. We really should have made it in 2022, very close. But, what can he do better? So there's been a couple of red flags for me. And if y'all have been watching this channel, then y'all have heard me talk on these things. So going all the way back to the winter transfer portal window, the first thing that we knew was that, after the football season, Nico came to the staff and he was asking for some changes with this scheme. And I think rightfully so. I've been very vocal about, hey, the scheme has to get changed. And y'all can look at the numbers. To me, it's blatantly obvious. And I know that people hate to hear that because we always want to blame somebody. And it's easiest to blame the quarterback. I think the quarterbacks get too much credit and they get too much blame. That's very, very true. But Nico wanted a scheme change. We see that we're still going to stick with the scheme change. It probably wasn't all just from Nico. I'm sure that the staff saw some of the same stuff. But we are going to be changing some stuff. Okay, so that was number one. So that was a good job by this staff of, hey, yeah, we need to make some changes, so we will make those changes. But Nico was also asking for more money. Now, he was getting paid, what? It's rumored $2 million, $2.5 million, something like that. And the speculation or what's been rumored is that his camp was maybe asking for about $4 million. Now, I don't know if that was their first ask or if that's what they got to once we came to spring ball. But understand something, right? So yesterday and even just now, I showed you all the player ratings from 2021 to 2025. I had to go through manually and look at every single player's player rating. You know what I mean? So Nico with, I think it was 24/7 Sports, he had a 100 rating. And I thought that maybe that was, he was the only player, but in every class, there's maybe 4 or 5 guys that have that high of a rating. That's a perfect rating. The only reason that I'm bringing that up is just to say that Nico as a prospect, very, very high up. Now, I do take those ratings and all that stuff with a grain of salt, but it's very tough to miss on guys up at the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's whenever you see that type of talent, that's pretty obvious. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see it. So talent was definitely there. I feel like Nico fit Tennessee's system perfectly, almost tailor-made for what Coach Heupel wants to do. But you can say what you want. Obviously his stats weren't great last season with Tennessee's passing game. Either way, I think that just from a sheer talent standpoint, you knew that you weren't going to find anybody that was more talented than what Nico is. That just probably wasn't going to happen unless you're going to go and get Arch Manning. And I can make the argument that, hey, there's some things that Nico's better at. There's some things that Arch is better at. But that was never going to happen. So I think that whenever Nico came and asked for that money, at first, as a staff, we probably should have tried to pay that. Now, maybe we just didn't have it. And that's part of is that what the problem is? Do we not have money? And I've got several more things that I'm going to be talking about. But that's why I want to start it off at, is that we push things off all the way through spring camp. And yes, it does sound like Nico's camp was shopping him. But guys, that is a very normal thing. That happens. Nico's not the only player. Look at Tate from those Buckeyes. Wide receiver that Tennessee thought that we were going to get out of the transfer portal. He sticks with them. He got a pay raise. He used his leverage to say, hey, I'm going to go to the portal. Whoop-de-whoop. Y'all got to get me right. And they got him right. But it happens all the time. You just don't hear about it. Nico's not even the only player on Tennessee's team that's done that. So it's not just about being selfish from that standpoint. Now, do I look at some of the things, or some of the things that I've heard about what Nico's team was doing? Yeah, if those things are true, it's not great. But at the same time, if you've got a quarterback with that level of talent, if he's not an absolute cancer to your locker room, if he's not walking around smacking folks and all of that, then I think that you need to try to make sure that you've got to take care of him. It's the same thing on every level of every single sport. I guarantee you there is not a high level, there isn't a program from the high level college ranks all the way to the NFL. And I'm just going to talk about Power 4. There is not a single solitary team that doesn't have at least one player that's got a little bit of baggage that, the staff is willing, hey, we got to deal with this because this is our guy. So I'm just saying that I think that might have been, I don't think that we handled that one right. And I don't know exactly what happened, but I feel like if Tennessee had the money, why not pay it then? Because understanding that if you push it off all the way to spring, and then if Nico leaves, which he did, now where's Tennessee at? We have to go out and try to scramble and find another quarterback. You want to find one that's competent. So it will be a veteran guy that's probably in their final season that want to go on to the NFL, and they've got to come up to Tennessee on short notice. They've got to learn this system, gel with these players and all that type of stuff, learn this fan base, and they've already built something elsewhere. So if that was ever going to happen, you are going to have to pay more than what Nico was asking, because there were already quarterbacks making about $4 million. Okay, so the floor probably would have been at about $5 million. So you're going to have to pay more for someone that's new. And, maybe they had good character at their previous school, but there's no guarantee that good character carries over once they come to Knoxville. So I just think that we took great risks there. But I said, okay, well, we must have a plan. We're going to save up money. Okay, we're going to take away Nico's contract. Maybe there were some things that he was doing, and I personally don't think that Nico is a bad kid. I think that he had some bad, leadership, I guess, or, maybe a little bit lack thereof, if some of those rumors are true. Just kind of calling it like I see it. So we don't know, because that's all speculation. But I think that I haven't heard not one player say anything bad about Nico, not a single solitary one, not personally speaking to him. Okay, so I think that, he wasn't as big of a cancer as some people think. But the whole point here is that moving forward, Tennessee's in a really, really tight spot. And I thought, okay, well, hey, we're trying to save some money. We feel like maybe we can add some pieces to this team, and maybe that would be the answer. And, maybe we feel good about some of these young quarterbacks, whoop-de-whoop. But what ends up happening is in that same winter window, Tennessee needs to go and add guards. That was also one of the things that Nico was asking for. He said, man, look, we got to get this offensive line right. So Tennessee targets a kid named Josh Thompson, who played at one of those Big Ten schools. I thought that he was the best guard in the whole portal. Like, I sit here, P and I, we watched the film, break it down. He was the best looking one that I had seen. I would rate him as about a 95 overall, since we on the video game. So his video game rating for me would be about a 95. Really, really good. And he visits Tennessee. He loves Tennessee, absolutely loves us. And actually coming out of the visit, I think that he may have told some of the insiders that he was picking Tennessee, that Tennessee was his school. For whatever reason, our staff, and y'all tell me on this, okay, because I could be totally wrong. I can't think of a single player that Tennessee's brought up on a visit that chose us on that visit. That like literally, I'm not talking about told the staff quietly, hey, I'm coming here, but I'm talking about, man, I can't hide it. I want to tell the whole world I'm locked down. This is my school. I can't think of any times that that's happened, especially now with a like high caliber, like really high 4-star or 5-star player. But I could be totally wrong on that. Either way, we let him leave from that visit without signing anything, goes on to LSU. LSU makes him a really big offer. He comes back to Tennessee and says, man, look, LSU offered me all this money. Can y'all match it? Tennessee was basically like, no, and that was it. So now, did that end up working out for us? Maybe. I mean, it's yet to be seen because Tennessee does go on to add 2 guards who I think are going to be really, really good. So I love Wendell Moy and also like Sam. I think that both of those guys are really good. So to keep up with the video game numbers, I would say that Wendell Moy probably put him at about like a 90, like low 90s. And as far as Pendleton, I'd put him in like the upper 80s, so like an 88, 89. So not quite at the level of what I saw with Josh Thompson. But hey, man, if you get 2 players that are really good, I think that that's a pretty decent trade-off. Now, could we still have added 2 guys if we would have got Josh Thompson? I don't know if that was a plan or what, but maybe we took that same money that he was asking for, and instead of getting 1 guy, we were able to get 2. So I think that that's smart. That's finding good value. That was really smart, I think, personally. But y'all tell me what y'all think about it. Now, moving forward, okay, so that's 2 issues right there. The next one that I could think about in sequence would be, you know what? Let's talk about Tennessee's wideouts, because we lost several guys. And it felt like, okay, Tennessee's losing some guys. We're not willing to pay them. We feel like maybe they're not worth that. Trying to find value, but also understanding that we were heading into that final, that spring window. So that's the final window until you get to until you get to this new like revenue sharing stuff and, this NIL cap stuff. So you knew that people were going to be asking for outrageous money, and maybe the players on our current roster were asking for that crazy money. Maybe we felt like, hey, we can find somebody at a better value that is going to be just as good. I think that that's a major risk, like you got to take some risks. But I think that was that one might be pretty big. Now, I love our wide receiver room. It's just really young, and we don't have that many bodies. Tennessee does add Jefferson from Alabama, who I think is really good, but obviously coming off of that hip surgery, how is he going to look? That was a risk. But we're seeing now, I think in spring he looked good. I'm sure that he's gotten better. So that could have been a pretty good, like deal there for Tennessee just to get some benefit. But I think the Tennessee need to add 1 more guy. And we were looking, but we couldn't find anybody in the proper price range. So we had saved up money. It feels like we had 2 or 3 instances that we just talked about where we're saving money. And yeah, we're spending some, but maybe we're just spending it wisely. So, okay, it's not, these are kind of like red flags, but it's not too major at this point for me. Now, y'all tell me where I'm off at, or, where y'all see something differently, okay? So keep on moving forward. Tennessee also loses several safeties. We end up losing 3. One of the guys we know is going to a Power 4 program to, what we heard at that time was to be a backup, getting paid more money to go be a backup than we were willing to pay him to be a starter here. Understanding that we had already lost 2 other veteran safeties, and that room is very, very light. So at this point, y'all, Tennessee has a total of 3 true safety bodies on this roster. One of them is a true freshman. Okay, the other one didn't play but maybe 40 or 50 snaps last season if you're talking about just like real safety work, and maybe not even that many snaps. All right, so we have 1 veteran. We've got 2 underclassmen. One is super fresh, super new, very talented guys, but they haven't played very much. Safety's that's a tough place for you to be thrown out there versus the SEC competition with these great offensive coordinators where they're going to isolate safeties, and if they don't know what they're doing, that's 6 points. Like if you blow something as a safety, that's the last line. So whether that's a run fit, whether that's a coverage, it's typically going to be a huge, huge play. So you got to be rock solid there. But we say, okay, we're going to save money here too. And, of course, Tennessee has to bring a cornerback over from Star. So we had a cornerback. We got him to play cornerback coming out of high school, Beasley, right? And playing a corner as a freshman, then moves to Star in spring. Now he's moved to safety. So now we have a total of like 4 safeties. We have to move at least 1 more cornerback or star body over to safety just to have proper depth. So now we're having to pull from other spots, you know what I'm saying, to supplement for our safety. Pull from other spots on our own team because we didn't go to the portal to add any other safeties. Why? Because the price tag must have been too big. And I know, I've heard some of the numbers. I know that they were really, really high. But this is the situation that we got ourselves into. If you're going to be losing players, why not find somebody that you can add? Or like we should at least know what the market is to say, hey, man, we don't want to put ourselves in this really bad spot. Now, does the staff feel fine with those numbers? Maybe they do. They don't have a choice now, but I wouldn't personally feel good about a situation where you only have 4 safeties going into a season. When safeties, I mean, listen, they got to bang. Safeties get hurt a lot. You know what I mean? Like you talk about linebackers, dude, safeties are coming downhill. They're smaller than those backers. They're faster, and they've got to hit bigger guys than what they are typically. That is a disaster. Okay, that's a recipe to get injured, knock on wood. But I'm just saying, I don't think that those numbers made sense. But then we can keep on moving forward because overall, my take on it, y'all, was, okay, Tennessee is saving money from the transfer portal. We're going to spend up these funds on the 2026 class, and we're off to a really good start. So we got Faison. You know, Faison's really close with Tristan Keys, and they really tight. They go on visits and all of that. And of course, Keys comes up to visit Tennessee with Faison in the spring. He had a great visit. He's talking just very highly of Tennessee, more than he talks about any other program. Then he goes to LSU, I think like that same week or that same weekend, might have been on the following day, goes to LSU, and all of a sudden he chooses LSU. Like, how does that happen? I don't understand it. Typically, whenever something like that happens quickly, it could be a multitude of different factors, but you got to look at the money. Like, that's what I'm looking at. It's not all money. I know that there's, different variants to it, obviously. LSU, a lot more pro style. Tennessee's, the way that we were running routes last season and in 2000, really kind of since Heupel's been here, it was working in 21 and 22. People were getting wide open all the time. I know that people still got open in 23 and 24 too, but it was not on the same level. And if these players, like whenever they sit down with the staff members, they're looking at film. Now, the staff is going to have certain clips, like certain highlights kind of like clipped up for them, but they're also going to be like watching games, and they can see, like, these guys understand football. So they see these things. They're like, man, shoot, it looks like it's kind of a struggle. So LSU, more pro style, maybe we'll get you more ready for the NFL, things like that. So maybe that's going for them. But I just think that at the end of the day, whatever number that they drew up on that piece of paper, Tristan Keys loved it. And Tennessee, obviously, whatever we were talking, it must not have been really in that same ballpark. Now, he has since come out and said that he thinks that Tennessee's NIL is great. And I think that it was A&M was the other program. He said, man, they got some, like, their NIL looks good. I don't know, but I find that troubling to say the least, because, man, Tennessee led for Tristan Keys for like 2 years. I mean, he was pretty much all ball. We were just waiting. We were like, yeah, he's going to come off the board really soon, and then he chooses a different program. Now, he could still flip. He could still open things back up. But honestly speaking, I don't know how much confidence I have in that whole situation. Like at this point, I'm starting to lose maybe a little bit of confidence. And maybe it's just because there hasn't been too much movement. Maybe I need more patience. Maybe it just takes more time. I don't know. But we can look at some other players. Like, let's talk about Leos, because with just edge rushers, you could look at maybe like the top 6 or 7 players in the whole country. Just look at them, okay? Just look at that list. Every single one of them, Tennessee was at least in their top 3. For most of them, Tennessee was number 1 at some point. What the hell happened? Because we didn't land not a single solitary one of them. We have not even landed one. The whole Tristan Givens thing, very similar to Tristan Keys, where it was kind of back and forth with us and with the other program. But either way, it's kind of a back and forth big boy battle. That's the whole point. Like, back and forth big boy battles, I don't feel like we're really winning those. But Tennessee doesn't get him to close on his OV. Then he goes to the next program next weekend, and on the visit, he chooses them. It's happened too many times, and I am a little bit concerned with what's going on, because if we were saving the money from the transfer portal, then why don't we? It doesn't feel like we have it for this 2026 class. Now, some people will say, okay, well, Tennessee's just saving that money for Tristan Keys, for Savion Hyder, for maybe Darius Gray, for some of those bigger names. Okay. We damn sure better be getting in safeties, though, because those guys hey, that would be great if we added them. But if you're going to have to save up that much money to add 2 or 3 players, we have other glaring weaknesses, and safety is a major one. So looking at Joel, who is going to be choosing on Wednesday, I feel pretty good about it. But I think South Carolina, they're in the mix there too. He's teammates with Braden Rouse. I think that if Braden chooses us tonight, is there a stronger possibility that maybe Joel chooses us tomorrow? I think that that's very possible, but I can't say that for 100% certainty. Now, I felt great about Joel coming out of his visit, but I felt great about a long list of players. And I'm not even going to name off everybody, but there's a lot that I felt great about. And, we don't know where Tennessee, obviously they ended up choosing somebody else, or we just don't know where Tennessee sits at with them currently. So we'll see, but Tennessee definitely needs safeties. What about Moa? Because Moa, he's from Utah, which I totally get, but he's a really good freaking safety. It feels like maybe he's still leaning towards Utah. I think that Tennessee is making him think about some things, but we really shouldn't be in battles with some of these programs. And I don't give a damn if he is from Utah. That shouldn't matter, man, like Tennessee's program. And maybe I'm seeing it wrong. Maybe Tennessee's not the program that I think it is. Maybe we don't have the resources that I think. And I'm not trying to make this all doom and gloom, but I am starting to see some issues at this point. Now, I hope that I'm wrong on everything, and we could definitely flip things, and it could turn around really, really quickly. So don't take it like I'm being like a negaval or whatever. I'm just calling things like I see it. We should be able to have conversations, and people don't get their feelings hurt just because I feel a certain way. You can feel a totally different way, and I would love to hear about it. But I think that's the whole point. I feel like with Moa, Tennessee should have been able to close that better. We should have been in on him earlier. And, whenever y'all looked at that, and I'll actually pull that back up so that y'all can see how the safety ratings look. Let me pause this thing, y'all. See if I can get this thing to pause. And even if I can't, we might just have to. Let me see. All right, so this thing is not wanting to pause. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let me pull this thing back up, okay? We're going to pull this thing back up. Give me just a second. Bear with me. All right, so boom. All right, look down at the very, very bottom. Look at safeties, right? That's the S. You can see that Tennessee was at 0.08% up to this class. So from 2021 to 2025, right? So leading up, this is not counting 2026. Our blue chip ratio with safeties is 0.08%. That is outrageously low. I think the only 4-star that we got was Andre Turrentine, and he was a transfer guy. Okay, so I just wanted to show y'all that so that people can maybe understand what I'm talking about here. I'm not just making it up. And let me get myself back in here, y'all. Give me just a second. Bear with me. We're gonna pull it back up. All right, boom. So I'm gonna bring this back up, and I hope that this wasn't up too loud. I'll cut that down some. All right, so listen, Tennessee's doing a pretty poor job of bringing up safety talent. Now, do I think that some of the guys that Tennessee's brought up are underrated? I do think so. I think that we've got some guys that play a corner that could also play a safety, but we still need cornerbacks too. So we've got to do a much better job of landing just true safeties. I think that Joel, he's a true safety that's versatile, that can do more on top of playing safety. Moa, he's a true safety that can do more on top of it. Those are huge needs for this class. I think that we need to add both of those guys because the two guys that we have right now that we brought in to play at safety, I love those guys. I think that they're very, very talented. But are they ready to play safety in the SEC? It's going to take a lot of growth. Can they do it? Hell yeah, I believe that they can. But, from a realistic standpoint, knowing that, hey, this is everything happens fast right now. Like, we need guys and we need them right now because we need, I think, at least one freshman, maybe even 2 freshman safeties that can come in and give us depth off of the rip. And if we can't find that, then we have to go to the portal. And we already know that the portal is going to be more expensive than the high school players. We didn't spend too much in the last one. Or I can't say exactly how much we spent, but it didn't feel like we had, really long pockets because if we did, we would have held on to at least one of those safeties. I can tell you that for sure. 100%. Like, you would have at least held on to somebody. Or, maybe added one more wide out because that room is very shorthanded. And there's a couple of other things too, but saying all those things just to say, safety is a major, major deal, okay? Like, we have to bring in people who can play at safety. And we'll see, will Tennessee close? But let me also talk about this whole, Wyatt thing, because I think that Joel Wyatt, obviously in-state kid, 6'5", 200 pounds, can play almost every single skill position that you could think of on a really, really high level. I mean, he can't play running back, but pretty much everything else, he can do it. And, he can grow into it if he can't do it right now. But I think that looking at his frame right now, it tells you wide receiver, and it also tells you safety. Now, how long have we talked about that on this channel? I think before he went public and said it, we were like, man, I think he might want to play at safety or at wide receiver. It was almost common sense. You could just kind of read his body language, or you could tell by the way that his articles were worded, some of his quotes. You could tell by what he's doing at these camps. He's not playing Leo, or he's not playing edge rusher at any of these camps. So what that tells me is, yes, it was pretty obvious that that's not what he wanted to do. Now, I totally get it. If I'm not, Coach Garner knows what he's doing. He's done it for a very, very long time. So I'm not saying that. What I am, if you see Joel Wyatt as a edge rusher, as a Leo, I can see that too. Like it's yes, he could grow into it. He could be a great one. But at the same time, Tennessee's defense, Tennessee's team needs a safety more. The kid wants to play safety. You talked to him about playing at Leo, and he's like, I don't really want to do that. You know what I'm saying? And even the web school, they do send a lot of players to the University of Tennessee. That should have been a slam dunk, wash your hands with it. You know what I'm saying? Like just a lock. Just a don't even worry about it lock. Why in the hell is he not locked up? You know what I'm saying? It's us versus Vanderbilt. Now, I'm sure the Vanderbilt's got plenty to offer. Obviously, my brother P went there, so I know that they have a lot of great things to offer, especially with the education. They got really deep pockets there, too. I don't know how much they're going to allocate to their NIL and things like that, but I know that they've got some good opportunities for them. But whenever P went there, it was a totally different ball game. Like, they were good. You know what I'm saying? Like, now they're not, and I mean, maybe you could maybe make the argument that they were pretty good last season, but I mean, come on, like, what do they really have coming back? You know, like Coach Franklin was bringing up dudes. This guy, he's not really bringing up dudes. I think he's just kind of like coaching them up really, really well. So I'm just saying that shouldn't even be, we should not be in a head-to-head scratch and claw battle with Vanderbilt for a kid that should be an absolute and total lock. And I feel like once he pushed his date back, that's when this could be off, but it seems like that's when the insiders were saying, well, maybe Tennessee will let him play some safety. But why would you hold on to that narrative of, hey, you have to play Leo Forrest, and I don't know if that's exactly how they worded it, but why are you going to try to push him to play at Leo, knowing that he doesn't want to play that and knowing that we need him on this team, period, point blank, and we need him a lot more at safety than we do playing at Leo. Now, I don't think, and we talked about, I don't think we've done the best job of adding Leos in this class. We've done a great job leading up to this class, which is why if we don't add another Leo in this class, we're in a much better spot, rather than not adding any more safeties. A much better spot, okay? So that's why I'm like, what is really going on? And I'm going to do some research and see if I can't find out what some of the players think. Like, where did Tennessee go wrong at for you? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something that I would love to know, because it does feel like something is a little bit off. Or are we still just trying to save up money? Or is this new brand deal going to help us with the NIL? Because that's another part of it. I think that Tennessee, again, given the circumstances that Coach Heupel had, I think that they did a really good job once NIL started. Which I think that it had already started by the time that they came up. But I think that they did a pretty good job of landing some good classes, because we could use our big-time donors and our big-time sponsors for these contracts. The difference is this season, it feels like what they're saying is the big-time donors and boosters, you can't really get that money from them. What you're going to have to do is find some big corporations that can give you what they would call real NIL deals. But, I mean, shoot, all of it's real. If somebody wants to pay you for doing whatever for your name, image, and likeness, it's because you are who you are. Hey, man, you know what? You're him. Let me give you $500 million. This is America. You should be able to do that. So I don't know if maybe that's what has slowed Tennessee down for this cycle, is because we felt like maybe we couldn't get some of those NIL deals passed. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just money. I don't think that it's necessarily about like the genuineness of this staff, because I've heard nothing but really good things from that standpoint. They're all good dudes. They all give off that family vibe, which is great. But these kids, like you see that money, and you see some of these other things, and that's kind of more of what you're going to lean to. I personally, y'all, I think that, yeah, it might be a little something to do with maybe like a lack of funds, or maybe a lack of ways to get the funds to those players that we feel like is going to be legal. See what I'm saying? Maybe it's probably mostly that. But I also think that we've got to be a little bit more pushy. I think that you've got to try to close on these visits. I don't know if it necessarily works great just to give these kids such a, to let them weigh their options out too much, because it's not, that probably worked like back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it probably worked pretty well then, but the kids weren't getting paid. I'm not going to say that they weren't getting paid, because they was getting paid, but not on the same level where it's out in the open and all of that. There was no real social media. So back in those days, it was, people were just different. I think that these days you got to you might just need to say, hey, man, we got a couple of spots left. We'd love for you to have one, but we can't guarantee that it's going to be here if you leave campus without getting this locked up, because we got some more dudes coming up. It's not personal. This is business. Those kids understand that. They understand business. Trust me, they understand it. So I just think that maybe a little bit more of that. That's just how I see it personally, y'all. So please don't please don't get pissed off. But even if you do, you can tell me about it. But those are my thoughts, man. I just wanted to share some of those things with you. I think that this class is going to end up finishing strong. Hopefully things do end up going well, and we'll be coming back probably within like the next few hours or so, and talking about the players that we add today. I fingers crossed that we're going to add both of those guys that Tennessee really needs. But thank y'all so much, man. Please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave your comments down there, and we'll be talking to y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.